of public life in 2017, he looked to his council for a potential candidate to take his place. His choice was Christina Smith. Westmounters agreed, and on April 24th, 2017, Ms. Smith was elected mayor of Westmount, just in time for her and council to face unprecedented issues. Some of the issues are communication. There's never been a time when Westmounters were more in need of clear, concise, and transparent two-way communication with the administration. The new website has been a great improvement in that respect. Traffic, well, traffic's always been an issue in Westmount, but with the master traffic plan, it has made improvements that help calm and control the flow of traffic through Westmount daily. Urban planning needs to be updated with the simplification and implementation of the urban master plan. And parks and infrastructure, assessing and addressing the state of roads, sidewalks, public buildings, and the completion of the historically accurate reconstruction of our cherished conservatory. And of course, the pandemic, changing how council and administration function, how they respond to daily needs with initiatives such as the outdoor skating rink in Westmount Park and the winter sledding run, a lot of fun in King George Park. And I could go on, but as they say, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's give a warm Rotary welcome to her worship, the Mayor of Westmount, Christina Smith.
Hear, hear.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter, for that kind introduction. And hi to everyone at Rotary. I think the last time I was with you, I can't remember if it was with, who came first? Was it, did Denny Coderre speak before Paul Martin, or was it the other way around? I can't remember.
No, it's that way.
So I guess the last lunch I actually had with you in person was with Paul Martin. I guess that was last winter that when he spoke about polio. I can't remember. Anyways, and prior to that was with Denny Coderre. And had I known I was following Mr. Martin's speech last week, I might have been a bit intimidated to say yes to follow what I believe is one of our greatest prime ministers. Too short, in my opinion, but his service, especially as finance minister, will certainly live on. So thank you for having me. And I don't really have, I was asked what did I want to speak about and what, in terms of challenges ahead and looking ahead, but also just in the past year. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about the question that I get asked all the time, wherever I go, in the park, in the grocery store, at City Hall, in council meetings. And that is about what has it actually been like to be the mayor during a pandemic. So it's interesting to hear Peter list off all the things that we were working on. And it almost seems, this year has gone by so quickly, but it also seems like a lifetime ago when we actually were able to work through so many of those issues and so much of what we were doing, and we were finally getting traction. They often say it takes 3 years to get a new council going, and it did feel like that. So at sort of the 3-year mark, we were starting to make big indents on our infrastructure budget, our infrastructure plans, in terms of dealing with some buildings that needed some much love, as in finally the greenhouse was going. Finally, we were getting the work done on City Hall, and these are building, it's one thing for us to invest in the greenhouse because citizens love it and they use it. It's another when we're investing in our own offices, right? So City Hall is a building for everyone, but it is not a building, it's not like Victoria Hall where citizens come in it and use it every day, but it still needs, I call it our very own 24 Sussex, in that it had a leaking roof and rotten windows, and vines that had taken over the building and had to come down, and you name it, there was something wrong with it in City Hall. And then in the interior, if you come into my office, lots of people have a little bit of a chuckle with the wood paneling and the couches from the 70s. So there's definitely there's work to be done there. And so it felt like we were finally getting traction on some major issues and moving things forward and starting to do the biggest infrastructure budgets we'd ever done in the city. And that was last year's infrastructure budget was supposed to be the largest, and the amount of work we were going to do was the largest we'd ever done in a year. And then came March 2020, and it all came to such a grinding, all of that work came to such a grinding halt because we were faced with the immediate need of dealing with the pandemic. And I don't know where all of you were, but I remember at the end of February calling, and I'm sure probably many of you know him as John Carsley, who is a public health doctor, who has since moved to Vancouver. But he was the public health doctor. He was the Mylène Drouin for a long, long time in Montreal. And he is my husband's cousin. And I called him at the end of February because it was right before spring break. And I said, do you think if we go to visit my sister-in-law in Costa Rica, is that crazy? And he said, no, you'll be fine. He said, it's, you know, watch it, keep track of what's going on. But he said, honestly, it's not in Canada yet. In a large presence, there was some cases in BC where he was a newly retired public health doctor. And so we went to Costa Rica, and like all of you, we watched the world change in a matter of days. And so while I was there on spring break, like many Quebecers, like if one thing we've realized is Quebecers of my age like spring break. And so while we were there, the day before we flew out is when the WHO declared that it was a pandemic. And the day I flew back, so I flew back on the 11th at night, and then the next morning is when the lockdown began, and the whole world had changed. And while we were prepared, I'd say as a city, prepared as you can be, but we were not, nobody was prepared. No municipalities were prepared for what was going to come, what we were going to be faced with. And so in municipalities, I mean, we're a service government, right? We build roads, we take care of parks, we pick up your garbage, we plow your snow, you pay taxes and we give you services. And all of a sudden, we became, it may be the nature that of this council or of this city, but we became sort of, almost felt like we were the front lines for the provincial and the federal government as well, who seemed very far away from the community. And so we had all of these vulnerable seniors who all of a sudden felt like they couldn't leave their homes. They didn't know how to online shop. And there was just a complete shift in how everybody lived. And we sat down as a council and we, every single day, we met every day, which is unheard of for Westmount City Council, does not typically meet every day. We had a meeting every single morning of how could we make sure that we protected our most vulnerable, which was primarily our seniors. And the rules changed every day. And that's another thing that governments are not great at. They're not great at saying something one day and being okay with changing the rules the next day. And we all had to get used to that. So one day, I'm saying the parks are open and everything is great. The one day that really stuck with me was when we taped up the jungle gyms and public security had to go out and cut off access to the parks. I never in a million years would have thought I would be a mayor that would shut down a section of our parks. And that, at that point, I said, our main focus collectively as a council, but as mayors across Quebec, was to keep our green spaces open, to keep our public spaces open, to figure out ways that we could do it safely. So if that meant shutting down, closing down parts of roads to make sure that people had more space to walk, that we were gonna do that. And if it didn't work, we were gonna stop doing it. And that was where, that's where we would get highly criticized. Well, you said this last week. You said last week that we were going to walk on the right side of the road or something. And if it didn't work, we had to be okay with saying that the idea didn't work or it wasn't we couldn't implement it, and then move forward. But you will always get criticized for that. But we got a little bit better at dealing with that. So it was the shift, and so we all thought that was sort of temporary, right? I mean, if we all look back to March last year, we thought we were doing this for, at first it was a 2-week pause, and then it was going to be a month, and then it was longer. And all the while throughout this, also homeschooling 3 children. So, or having 3, I wouldn't call it homeschooling. I would not say that I was actually the teacher, but I was the I had 3 kids at home who were trying to do school online. But it was, I mean, I must say, so we get heavily criticized, obviously everybody does in this age of social media and the impact there. But I wish I could give it like a bit of a window to citizens inside for how hard our public works teams have worked, and our public security teams, and everybody in the administration, really to completely shift how they operate. And I remember saying to our director general at the time was Benoit Herchebys, before everybody went home, before we shifted everybody online, I said, we are going to have to send all of our employees home except for our public works staff. We'll figure out how that works, but everybody's going to work from home, and we're going to have to trust them. And we are going, and he said, it's impossible. We can't have our employees work from home. How are we going to manage it? How are we? And everybody was having this conversation, not just us. And I said, we just have to do it. If you don't do it now, Francois Legault is going to tell you next week to do it. So we can be ready. And, this is the directive from council, is that this is the safest thing for our employees right now. And we did it. And so we did it before other cities did it. And before ultimately the government said everybody is working remotely that can. And that's hard in an organization as well, because we have our blue collar staff having to come in and be on, they have families and they have kids at home. Many of them are of an age where they're taking care of parents who were nervous and concerned, and they also have kids that are now out of school. So, and they were considered essential workers. So they were they're in that generation. Many of those workers are sort of 35 to 55, I'd say 30 to 50. And it was incredibly tough for them, but they did it, and they showed up every single day, and they worked in really trying circumstances where their job before had been to work from 7 to 3, and now all of a sudden they're working night shifts, and we're working around the clock. So our entire public works team has been split into 4 teams so that they never overlap. So you'll see more trucks out at night. You'll see teams that are working at night that weren't working, that those people didn't work at night before. So that was a big, that was a major undertaking in terms of human resources, and the commitment of those people to continue to continue to do their jobs and to do it well, and to keep our city safe and clean. So I wish, and public security as well, the work that they did was incredible. They had a list of vulnerable seniors. They know who they are. They work closely with Contactivity to connect with them every single day. And it didn't mean that they were doing their groceries every day, but they checked in on them. And they were often the only voice that person heard that day. And they were so dedicated, especially, I don't know if any of you have met Kim Colhoun, who works at, she's sort of Greg's number 2 there. And she was incredible. You'd see her at 5 Saisons at 7 o'clock in the morning. She'd go in often before her shift, and she would have the list, and she'd work with the manager of 5 Saisons to get all the grocery orders ready, and then public security would deliver them. And that was a program that was very, very important to me and to council as well, is to make sure that we could support those people and help them know that we were there if they needed it, if they needed their medication picked up and things like that. And so I'd say those 2 teams I don't know if citizens really realized how hard they worked and how much, how dedicated they were, and really how much I owe them. I have a huge debt of gratitude to them for what they have done over the past year. And we're a different city. We're a little city that's surrounded by a very big city. And so we have the ability, if a demerged city ever made sense, it always made sense. But in the past year, we have seen how being our own city, being an independent city, having control of our own budget, and being able to do these initiatives that other boroughs, that NDG or Outremont would be unable to do, because they would need the city of Montreal to give them the okay for it. So we were able to put forward initiatives that made sense for our citizens, and in terms of support, but also we knew that all activities were closed. We knew that if the pool didn't open, that also meant Aquafit didn't open, which is also, one of the only, for seniors in our community, that is a hugely beneficial activity. And so when there were discussions, do we open the pool? And many citizens or many communities didn't open their pools, their municipal pools. And we did, and we figured out a way to do it safely. And it was tough because it was only 75 people allowed in the pool. I mean, the hate mail that I would get from people when they couldn't get a spot at the pool because there were only 75 allowed in an hour, and they were standing at the fence and they counted that there were only 70 in the pool, and why can't I go in? But we just, we put our heads down and we kept working at it to make the pool as accessible as possible to as many people as possible. And it worked. And it worked because the public works team worked with public security and worked with sports and rec to make sure that it would open. And there were, we couldn't be full capacity. We were at a fifth of what we normally were, but at least a fifth was something. So I was very proud of all the work that went in there, and also all the different initiatives throughout the year. We knew that there was going to be no hockey. So for kids that are, playing high level competitive hockey, or just the ones that play on the inner city teams, it's not having that sport and not being able to do that did have a huge impact on them. So we I think probably got the last refrigerated rink of that size in Canada. Our Robert Tallarico from Public Works took me very seriously when I said I want a refrigerated rink in Westmount Park, and I want it to be open at the beginning of November. And he searched and scoured and got a supplier and was able to rent it. And we did it. We rented it right up until the last day where it came in under a certain price, so that we didn't have to have multiple bids, because we didn't know how long that would then take. So we were able to get the rink in at the beginning of November, and it was I'd say the rink was a huge success and a big draw for the community. And then we thought, well, if families can't, if they can't play hockey, and we don't know about skiing, and they can't go anywhere, why don't we bring in snowmaking machines and put in some form toboggan runs where kids would be separated. That was the whole idea of the toboggan runs, was to have them in these chutes so that they weren't all on top of each other and we could somehow separate them. And so people thought we were crazy, but we brought in the snow guns, and we made snow on the hill in King George. And then it became so popular that we had to hire police. We had to hire extra public security to manage it. So we knew people would like it. I didn't know that it would be, I guess I was naive to think that 1,000 people would be standing on the top of Murray Hill Park, desperate to do it. And then when they couldn't toboggan there, they would start crashing through the snow fences on the other side of the hill, because they were just dying to be outside, and the kids were dying for some form of activity. So there was, little by little, we built on all these things, but I think what we realized, and then in the summertime as well, with some of our public, we need to give over some of our space from cars back to people. And so on Green Avenue, by taking out, by shifting over the parking, we were able to give back that public space to people, to picnic tables, and to, that helps Nick's survive, that helps the coffee shop survive. I mean, the ice cream shop alone on Green Avenue has kind of changed the whole dynamic of the street, but they need somewhere to go. And so, one of the lasting effects of COVID, I think, on our society is going to be that too much of our public space belongs to cars right now. And how can we reinvent some of that for people and for pedestrians? And we see, sidewalks are too narrow, but we have these streets that are designed, obviously, cars aren't going, and we need cars and we need parking, and we can't be naive about it. But I think we can be a whole lot more creative in terms of how we use our public space, and whether that's temporary or we shut down streets for food festival, you know, maybe we shut down Green Avenue and bring in food trucks and cars can figure out another way to park for the weekend. But I really think there's been a shift in people and their expectations of public space in green space, not only in green spaces and parks, but also on streets and sidewalks. So those were some of the, so all of these things we were not necessarily working on before COVID, but I think have really shifted how we're going to manage our cities going forward. And at the core of it, and people have also, you know, asked what is sort of our guiding, you know, how are we being guided through this? I've also said, you know, as a mayor to council the entire way through, we are not public health. The epidemiologists will make the decisions, and we can't cherry pick the directions from public health. We have to implement them. So if you know, they say masks are mandatory in public spaces, then obviously we are going to support that. And on the mask front, actually, we were prepared to move. It made sense to do it island-wide, obviously, and this was in June. We started having these discussions, and Côte St. Luc had already put in this mask mandate for the city, but it really made sense for it to be province-wide, not just island-wide. But if it wasn't going to be province-wide, it needed to be for the island of Montreal. And so I spoke to Valerie Plante and then her office before, saying, you know, I don't want to do this, but I will move with a mask mandate at council on Monday night. I hope Montreal announces before then, so I don't have to say we're doing it alone. And they were still not there because we were still not getting the direction from the province. And then luckily at about 3 p.m. on the Monday, they said, okay, we will announce tomorrow that there's going to be a mask mandate for Montreal. And then Francois Legault immediately announced that it was going to be for Quebec. So we can't, all of this is, you know, we always have to listen to public health, but we also have to do what's right for our community in terms of initiatives. So we've tried to make sure that the lines are clear on what we can and cannot do. And what we can do is offer services and activities and try and open as much as we possibly can throughout this pandemic. So other cities, a lot of, you know, Kirkland, Beaconsfield, some of those cities, they didn't reopen some of their facilities or offer some of the programming that we did. And we worked hard to do it. And I think we did, I think our citizens appreciated it in the end by what we were opening. And, you know, the library is still not fully open. We hope to do that soon. But we will do it safely, and we will offer as much as we possibly can to citizens, because I know people are desperate to get back to feeling connected, and often that's going to happen in public spaces right now. So those are a few of that's a little bit of sort of, you know, if people ask how this year has been, it's been it's certainly taken its toll, I'd say, on many. And it's not unique to municipal world, but we've seen, you know, so much burnout. We've seen it, you know, employees struggling. I've seen it in my, you know, I see it in my own kids that they're struggling. And it is, I think, little by little, you know, people will say, oh, well, did you, you know, you don't waste money on these initiatives and all, but those initiatives, you know, can turn someone's day around. They can turn someone, you know, a family, if they have an activity to do, like go to the toboggan run or go play or go skating, it can absolutely have a huge impact. So I think that's been, you know, one of the greatest challenges, but also one of the greatest joys of the past year, was really trying to bring services and a little bit of normalcy, I guess, to people's lives. And we don't know what the next couple months lie ahead, but we're also seeing Westmount's. I'm not surprised. We have pretty high vaccination rates for our numbers. Probably one of the highest actually on the island, and one because we have a lot of seniors, but also as it moves, each category that moves down, we see that Westmounters are getting vaccinated. And so that with every vaccine, we get a little bit closer to getting back to normal. So whatever you can do as leaders in your community as well, to encourage that, I would just, you know, post your pictures and your selfies with your getting your vaccines. But so little by little, we'll get there, and we'll get back to planning, you know, big projects and talking about urban plan redesign and infrastructure and all of that. But but we're trying to do both. So we're trying to, you know, still not lose sight of those big projects that we've undertaken, and as well continue to manage in an unprecedented times. I mean, none of us could have imagined that this was what we would be living through for a full year. And certainly at the beginning of this mandate, if you had asked me that this is what I would be doing for a significant part of it, and certainly probably for the rest of this mandate. I mean, we go to the polls in November of this year, so it'll have been a full year and a half probably of a mandate in terms of managing COVID. So it's been a tough year, but it's been rewarding also to see a community that really gives back. So the work that Rotary has done, the work that Contactivity has done, the Green Center, and how people have managed to take care of our most vulnerable is continues to inspire me. So we can't give up. We've got to, you know, keep our heads down and really get through, try and get through this next wave, or get through this wave. So that's, I mean, it's sort of all over the place. But it's, that's a little, I just wanted to share a little bit about what it's been like to be the mayor in these strange and challenging times. So do you want to, are there questions? I haven't looked, or how do you want to,
Yes.
do you want to do this?
Thank you, Mayor Smith, and thank you for taking the time to come and speak with us. We always look forward to you coming. I've asked for questions in the chat. I have one here that says, Dear Mayor Smith, as the president of Toastmasters Club, we made Westmount shine by winning speech contests in 2020 and 2021 among hundreds of clubs. With your permission, do we have an exact time when Victoria Hall will be reopened for all of us?
I don't have, no, we don't have an exact time. We've, while it's been closed, you'll be happy to know we've painted it and we've cleaned it up, and we're trying to do the repairs that we can. But as soon as we are given the go ahead, we will absolutely open it and allow for our community groups to be back in there. I know there's many that are desperate to be back in there. So I can't give you an exact time. One would hope, I mean, if we listen to public health, by the end of June, if we have all adults vaccinated at that point, that we should be in a different position, especially for things like being able to open Victoria Hall for activities. And I would imagine we'll still be wearing masks and we'll still be distant and nothing will be at full capacity. But we're hoping certainly that milestone of June 24th will allow the opening of buildings like that. But as soon as we can, we are ready. So that is, it's a bit like the WRC. As soon as we can do it, it'll be ready. You know, as soon as we're given the go ahead for the pool, we'll be ready to do it.
Okay, thank you. We have an accolade here from Rod. Congratulations on the Murray Park Toboggan Run and the artificial ice rink. It was wonderful walking by to see the fantastic activity by the kids. Maybe a younger, more family-involved bunch of counselors should take a special bow for their initiatives. So that's from Rod.
Oh, that's nice. That is nice. They, I heard from a bunch of, lots of seniors as well who who said they had started skating again for the first time in a long time. We had a lot of snowbirds that were here for the winter for the first time as well. And how they appreciated that the benches were right at the ice and that they were, level so that they could get onto the ice. The thing also about the artificial ice, which was nice, was we saw a generation that don't typically use our services. So we saw this sort of 20-year-olds that are often, not in our parks or not using, our facilities, but they were out using it at night before the curfew went in. We had lots of people asking, could it stay open later? Could we keep it open till midnight so that these they had somewhere to go? Because if they weren't outside, they were probably going to be inside. So it was nice to see different users using these facilities.
Thank you, Mayor Smith. We may have another question. Malcolm, do you have a question that you wanted to ask?
Yes, I do. As we are all too well aware, the seniors have been very hard hit by this pandemic. Even for those who did not catch the virus, there's an overwhelming need for companionship and to get outdoors. The Cycling Without Age program, of which the Rotary Club is very familiar, is a step towards addressing these needs. This program operates in 51 countries around the world and has recently started a pilot project here in Westmount. A similar project in Belleville was started in 2013 and now operates in 17 Quebec municipalities. Most municipalities have extended their insurance coverage to include Belleville. They did so in order to provide this type of recreation to seniors within their town. Westmount was questioned if the Cycling Without Age could form a similar agreement regarding insurance with this city. The response was that the city of Westmount cannot legally provide insurance for the operation of an independent group. Could you elaborate on why it is not possible for Westmount to do this when 17 other Quebec municipalities do provide insurance to a similar group?
I thank you for your question. I know that you've been speaking, I think, with Councillor Gallery a little bit about this, and we have two new DGs who are old DGs, Duncan Campbell and Bruce St. Louis are back. And if you know either one of them, you know that they try and find solutions. So I know they are trying to find, there was a storage component, right? That you need somewhere to put this bike, right? So that I think they're continuing to try and look at that. I don't have an exact answer for you on insurance, so I don't want to give you a political spin on it, but I can find out why we cannot have, why our legal department gave that answer. And if there is a way around that, we can certainly look at it. And then if you can give me a couple of the names of the municipalities, our city clerk can then talk to them and see how they managed it.
Okay.
In terms of insurance.
Okay, the municipalities are right front and center on the Belleville website. It's the top.
Okay.
Top thing.
Well, I'll certainly talk to Andrew Brownstein about that and see if what the rationale is on the insurance. But I don't want to give you an answer that's not accurate. But I will follow up with you, Malcolm, on that. And where, so on that initiative, I'd love to come see the bike in action. Where would you see this activity happening? Like more on the bike path of de Maisonneuve or just everywhere? Well,
you take it basically everywhere, wherever the person really wants to go. Now, I've only had it a week, and I've taken it up to the top of Mount Royal and around NDG and a few places in and around Westmount. So I'm still exploring what the best routes actually are, and who the best pilots are, and what's really practical and what isn't. So we're still in a bit of a learning curve as to what really works and what are the best routes. Okay, it'd be great if you maybe made a short presentation to Marina Councillor.
Have we lost the mayor?
I think she's frozen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Give her a second here.
I think you're back now. You froze for a second.
Oh, am I back? Am I back? Hi. Okay. I will, Malcolm, I think, did you hear the point where I mentioned that you should maybe present this idea or talk to Marina Breshke and her accessibility group? Because this might be a project that they're interested in. Okay, I'll get in touch with Marina then. Okay. And I'll get back in touch with you about the insurance. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Smith. We have one last question, and it'll be Jim Farris that will ask you. Jim?
Yes, I was just wondering, during the last year, how many City of Westmount employees have been stricken by COVID?
so I had COVID and in the fall, as did my whole family, my husband and my 3 kids.
Oh, wow.
So on council, there have been 3 of us that have had COVID, but employees about probably in the end, about 10 in public security had COVID in the fall. So it went through public security fairly quickly. And public works, and then we've had, one in legal at the very beginning, which was scary at the very beginning because it was so unknown. Her husband works in the ER in a hospital, so they caught it very much in the first wave. And then public works, we've probably only had about 5 cases there. They've all been isolated where we haven't had to shut teams. But the thing with public works is because they're divided into these bubbles, we've been very lucky and very fortunate. It's quite astounding actually, because other cities have been hit very hard with their public works team. So say in the winter, if there had been a snowstorm and 2 bubbles had cases, they then would be isolated and would then be off. And if we had a snowstorm, then the snow was not getting picked up. And remarkably, we didn't have that. LaSalle had that last year, and it was after it was very much in the first wave in April, where they would have, like huge numbers of their public works team were COVID positive, and they work closely. It's been a challenge. They a typical day is they come in, they're in the lunchroom together, or in the cafeteria together, they're in trucks together, they're working in bubbles out, they're working in close proximity out in the parks together. And so it's been a challenge of trucks, how they ride in trucks. You'll see there's less of them in the trucks. They've got plexiglass in between the seats. They're all supposed to be wearing their masks. They can't eat lunch together. It's all staggered. If you come in at 6, then the next group, the AB team, one comes in at 6, one comes in at 7. No overlap. So it's been a challenge. So our staff have been very, very lucky. And some have been quite sick and have been hit very hard, and others have been more fortunate, but we've been lucky so far. But now it's really the race against the vaccine right now. So
Good. So it sounds like you got off fairly well. That's good to know.
we did. Yeah, we did in comparison to others, and also considering how closely they work together.
Okay. This is the first time I've seen myself on screen. I didn't realize that I'm surrounded by a halo. There, I don't look quite so angelic now. Thank you very much, Mayor Smith. David Franklin, are you there and available to thank our speaker?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you for the privilege of thanking Madame Mayor. We are privileged to be the Rotary Club of Westmount. Our home is Victoria Hall. We're also privileged to have you as an honorary member. But with privileges comes responsibilities. And as a Rotary Club, we have contributed to the welfare of the Westmount citizens. There are 3 groups: Resilience, Contractivity, Open Door, all located in the Atwater area, helping homeless people and those disadvantageous. We applaud your efforts of accepting the challenges of these very trying times. You present us a wide range of activities that you and your team have struggled to meet, ranging from old people, seniors, young people, sports, Green Avenue, the public works. We congratulate you for your energy, particularly since you were not well during this period. We always welcome you annually to give an update of our home. I use the word home because we are the Westmount Rotary Club. We are service before self. And that, as you know, as a member of our club, your service to the community is invaluable. Thank you for presenting today.
Thank you for having me. And it's always such a privilege to come and speak to Rotary, and you do such good work. And it's, I think I'm not alone in knowing and recognizing all the good work that you do, and truly for our most vulnerable.
If I may add one more thing, obviously you know that we are the supporter, the founder of Manoir,
Mhm.
adjacent to the Victoria Hall. An incredible facility that is managed by our team at Rotary with your support. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm sorry the heat went off there last week and the dining room was cold, but I'm pretty sure that I know Robert Tallarico got over there quickly with some additional heaters and I think fixed the problem.
Okay. Before you go, Mayor Smith, one last plug. You've been getting a lot of plugs today.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. Did you receive a copy of our 90th anniversary pamphlet that was sent out through Westmount last fall? Do you remember it?
I don't remember it. Now, it may have come into my office and Anne may have put it away before I got a chance to see it. But I will ask her about it. But if not, I'm sure you can send me another one.
Yeah, just that because we've been really upset with Canada Post because we know so many people that had been advised and were looking for it that didn't receive it.
Okay, I'll
as an
ask
example-
Anne if it came in.
Anyway, but I'll get you a copy anyway.
Okay.
Because we've been trying to celebrate our 90th anniversary, but every time we turn around with COVID, of course, we get the kibosh.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's I'll ask Anne about that. And I'll continue to support your good works. And especially, I didn't get a chance to talk about resilience too much, and that could be a whole other discussion, but I know that you support them and I'm looking forward to them having a permanent home where they literally are saving lives every day. I mean, they are an incredible organization that's doing vital work. So I'm excited for them that they have a permanent home with the right amount of space and the right amount of funding.
And it's an interesting situation where you've got one of the richest cities surrounded, of course, by Montreal.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, well, Westmount isn't poor, but on the cusp, and even within Westmount in certain spots, there's still people that need help.
Yeah. And
it's ironic sometimes that what happens.
Yeah. And I'm glad they're finally getting the proper funding. It's a huge relief.
Yeah. With that, we're going to continue with